What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, Advantage Player Workshop. Today's video, we are going to take a little video of the rear view, gripping, throwing. We're going to touch on a couple of topics. We're still in limbo on our full craps table. It is in the works. We spent most of the weekend working on it. We hope to have it finished by the end of the week. So don't have all of our regular cameras set up. So this one here, we just had this camera set up at the rear and set the phone timer here. Now, this video was pretty long, and I'll give you some cliff notes of it, but if you want to skip ahead at any time, I'll give you the key points and where we really took off as far as our roll. But today's topic, we're going to touch on a bit of a macro view of craps and gambling in general versus more of the micro view, which is, our individual name type strategies or systems, the Arnold or whatever drawdown or whatever it is that you like to use. And there's many better channels than ours as far as those micro view type strategies. Wayland's Way, Pro Craps, Mark the Point, Color Up. There's tons of them out there. So I hope you enjoy all those. Casino Quest obviously has a bunch of those. So I didn't want to just keep, beating everybody over the head with all those same types of videos. So I like to take a different approach at some of these while also giving some people what they request as far as more video of us gripping and throwing the dice. And hopefully when our setup improves here by the end of the week, hopefully we will have improved the quality of our videos as far as the table and all that. You'll never have to see me bounce the dice off the table again, which I'm sure you'll appreciate. But today's video, we want to touch on a concept in trading or day trading, really, versus some more of the traditional type concepts that you may have heard of, such as ROI or return on investment. And what we're going to focus on today is risk-adjusted returns. And we're going to talk about what it is and how it applies to gambling in general, but specifically craps and how craps it compares to blackjack in games of skill that you can then begin to get the edge. And this doesn't have anything to do with card counting or dice control. Of course, both of those can help if you can do them. Obviously, I don't count cards. I practiced many years and got pretty decent at it, but I pretty much gave up when I realized that, once you get really good at it, you pretty much get shut down the minute you start raising your bet. So I shifted and spent all my time on craps. Plus, craps is a lot more fun. So we're going to talk about that. But let me give you a recap of the video and the session here. We had 4 shooters. The first 2 were 2 rolls. The third shooter had 7 rolls. And then the fourth shooter had 48 rolls. And I quit before I 7'd out, simply because it was getting late, and every time I bounce the dice off the table, it wakes people up. So that roll could have kept going. You never know how long it would have gone on, but the roll is 100% true from back to front. I even set a timer down on my phone, but it went on so long that the screen kept switching over to the screensaver. So you see me along the way try to refresh it. And I actually was talking for quite a bit until about 10 minutes into the last shooter. I realized I was on a pretty good roll, so I decided to just stop talking and focus on the roll. And it went on pretty good. I mean, we almost hit 50 again, so we probably would have the way we were rolling. But I'll put the stats up there. But before I do that, I want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you for all the subscribers and the viewers who take part in the channel. Let's get a quick status update. We started on November 20th, as I've said. We basically had 2 subscribers, and both of those were me. And today we are at the making of this video or this voiceover. We are at 2,087. So we really appreciate that. We've really picked up a lot of steam, and it's been a lot of fun. And I really appreciate everybody that's taken part. So I want to get that out of the way. Thanks to our members, and thanks to the guys who have emailed me, sharing their videos of their own tosses, asking me to critique. I've got some of that I'm going to put up in the channel at some point. But I was falling behind on my production schedule because you really got to be posting 2 times a week to stay consistent, so YouTube continues to put your videos in front of others so you to grow your subscriber base. Anybody that has a channel understands all these things. And hopefully we will be making more enlightening videos for those, focusing on various topics that not a lot of people are talking about. And the purpose of this channel, folks, and the reason we finally settled on the name Advantage Player Workshop is simply because, we want everybody to get something out of this channel, of course. We don't want to just keep redoing the same thing other people have done. And, of course, there is going to be some crossover, and we're going to be, regurgitating some of the things you've already seen. That can't be helped. It's only a game that, tons of people cover. So, of course, there's going to be some redundancy. But we want to try to keep it unique and add a unique take on it, as we said. So if we were repeating somebody else's something or other, we apologize. That's not our goal. But we want to appeal to everybody. We want everybody to understand the concepts of it being an advantage player. And it's not foolproof. Of course, it's always still gambling, right? But you're always just looking for the edge wherever you can get them. And a lot of times the edge is not necessarily in the game itself or the dynamics of the game. It doesn't always come down to the house edge, player edge type thing. Sometimes you need to be able to conceptualize the game and how it relates to other things. And that's what I like to do. I find it's better to teach and to learn. Obviously, I learned first, and now I've become a bit of a teacher, I guess. But it helps me learning things when I'm able to compare them to other things that I'm interested in and see what types of crossover there are, such as the references I made to pool and golf. And I make a lot of those references when it comes to the actual techniques and mechanics and how I associate those with other games I'm very familiar with. In today's video, we're going to talk about something that's very prevalent in trading, and it's a concept called risk-adjusted returns. Return on investment, of course, is something we've all heard of. It's return on investment. If you give 100,000 and you get 20,000 back, right, you made a 20% return on your investment. But when it comes to trading, people who don't just put money into the market and leave it there, right? They get in, they get out. They get in, they get out. Well, those people aren't invested in the market the entire time, right? So if you give somebody 100,000, if you get a trader that you're investing in, for instance, you give him $100,000 and he hangs on to it for a year and he gives you back the same 20,000 versus the money manager or whoever you give the 100,000 to, and he buys a basket of stocks with it, and then he's invested 100% of the time. And at the end of the year, both of those investment managers give you back the same ROI. Well, one of them is probably far better than the other, and it's always going to depend on you. But the trader who was not in the market 100% of the time, if he was only trading and putting your money at risk, say 10% of the time, well, his risk-adjusted return is far better than the person who basically plopped the whole 100,000 out and put it all into play, let it sitting there exposed for 365 days, whereas this other person only had your money at risk for, say, 37 days. And I think it's really important to understand this concept and how it applies to gambling, in both how often you're gambling, but how often your money is at risk when you're gambling. And so let's take a look at this and how it applies. Now, obviously, each one of these comes with a different set of circumstances. And yes, of course, the trader may have been investing or trading in things that were a little bit riskier. But all things being equal, right, you're both getting the same amount of money in return that you gave him. But if you ask me, I would rather my money be at risk 10% of the time versus 100% of the time. Okay, so there is that concept right there. Now let's apply it to gambling, craps specifically. And I'm also going to use the Parlay and the martingale to use as examples. Now, as we know that the martingale is a negative progression system, right? You increase your bet as you lose, hoping to get back to even, but then just that one lousy unit. And then the Parlay, which is essentially a parlay type system, right? I think that's actually where parlay came from. I know Parolay's Italian, but I don't care enough to dig deep enough for that answer. But just the concept is what I'm trying to convey. But the Paroly or the parlay is basically you're increasing your wagers and your risk as you are winning. So as you get more and more into their money, you then put more and more of your money at risk, which is essentially their money at risk. And when you compare those two on the risk-adjusted return scale, you'll see that the martingale doesn't have a leg to stand on, whereas the Paroly is far superior when it comes to risk-adjusted returns because you're not risking anything until you're actually up. That's why a positive progression system is far superior to a negative regression system. And so I've covered that several times. I think anybody who's seen all these other videos, they start to get that. And the risk-adjusted returns is a great metric to look at things by and at. And that's... Now let's look at risk-adjusted returns in craps. You're essentially doing the same thing when you're trying to get into their money first before you really begin to ramp up and gamble. And when you do that in craps, the benefits to craps obviously is while the payout edges will never be in your favor in a random game, but you are still essentially getting paid back odds on your money every time you hit an individual number. Now, if you have a lot of money out there, know any number that you hit, unless it's like a hop or maybe a hard way perhaps, you're still not getting plus money overall while you're risking 100% of your money at any one time. But there are many other rolls that can happen other than the 7. Obviously, we know what those are. But when you look at it in terms of risk-adjusted returns, you have a really great opportunity in craps almost daily. You just have to make sure you're prepared, that you can continue to press once you get your money out of the hand, or press up enough to get your money out and then get yourself to the unit level you desire, and then flat bet it the rest of the way home without making a bunch of decisions like you have to in blackjack. You're risking 100% of your bet, and you're winning and losing 100% of your bet every single time. Whereas in craps, you're not winning 100% every time, but you can win easily 100% of what you have out there in just a couple of rolls, and then it continues on for as long as it will go without you having to make a bunch of correct decisions hand after hand or roll after roll after roll. That's where craps is a lot more enjoyable, and it actually has a lower barrier of entry for people who are just getting started, who don't know, let's say they don't know much at all about a basic strategy or card counting, or dice control for that matter. That doesn't really matter. But if they understand the basic concept of get your money out first and then keep your bets, leave them alone, set it and forget it type of mentality. And it just makes it for a much more enjoyable game in session versus a blackjack, in my opinion. Maybe some people really enjoy that more of a systematic, slow grind approach, where it just, on the scale of a risk-adjusted returns, craps has a higher ceiling, and as long as you play it properly, has a much higher floor as well. And that's why I really love craps over any other game, not just because I really am fascinated by dice control and what effect that may have on it. Of course, that changes from day to day, but that's the beauty of it. You never get to see how great it can be, because you're always trying to get a little bit better every single day and seeing what your improvement that day results in. And that's why it's so much more fun. To me, blackjack is probably one of the most boring games ever. And so doesn't mean you can't get a good edge at it, but it's just not for me. And once I realized you can't really get very far when you start counting cards before they throw you out, well, I don't want to be thrown out. I want to be invited back. And that's why it's just not even a close comparison. But constantly be looking at everything in terms of risk-adjusted returns in both the games that you play, but also in how you play them and how you bet them. And so I don't mean to disparage blackjack in any way. If you're wired that way and that's how you like to get, your action and do that slow grind type of thing with just a worse risk-adjusted return outlook versus craps, by all means, do whatever's comfortable. Baccarat's the same way. But I feel that dice control is the only one real area where you can actually have an edge if you can have an influence over the dice, right? And since it can't really be proven, they're very rarely ever going to throw you out or tell you can't play, which is in blackjack, it happens almost immediately. The minute you start winning, especially anything significant, and you give the appearance that you're counting cards, you're out of there. Whereas craps, it's so hard to believe anybody can really even do it for the most part, and it can't be definitive, and they can't really prove it other than saying, wow, this guy keeps coming every day, hitting this 50 roll on us every day, which we know that doesn't happen every single day. But I think you get my point there. But that's how we look at it in risk-adjusted returns. Apps, and when you really examine it and compare it along those lines, like you're trading, versus something like blackjack, it's the best game by far. So again, I really encourage everybody to do it. I'm actually going to attach a PDF that I had written out. I use a variety of sources for it. I'm going to attach a couple of links, one's from a Forbes article. I'm also going to attach a YouTube video to another channel that's a trading channel, and he explains risk-adjusted returns for those of you who may be interested. And I think it really applies. And you need to take other games of skill, other investment type opportunities and areas, and apply them to your game if you're really serious about doing this. And I don't mean as a professional or full-time or anything, but if you are going to risk your money, on a regular basis, you need to be a sharp player. You need to be you need to be the sharpest player that you can possibly be. And that's really what all of my channel is geared towards. I want to educate a lot of people about the things that maybe aren't being covered enough. And that's really our goal here. We went on our long run. I stopped talking around the 10-minute mark and I just let it roll as once I realized I was on a good one. But in the upcoming days, we will have our table up. It will be looking pretty good. I've got a custom felt. I'll have these available if anybody wants to get one from us. We're offering them at not very much markup at all, really. If you'd like our logo and you'd like it on one of maybe your home setups, let us know. We can make it in any size. We're not really charging you any abnormal amount from what you would normally pay it, but the setup fee for the logo has already been paid, and we'll offer those at a pretty good bargain. We'll have a few other things available. We're going to have a little store. We're going to copy other people and create our own little store, but I think we've got some unique things to offer, and I certainly wouldn't mind wearing the Advantage Player Workshop logo discreetly on a couple of things. I don't know I'll be wearing a giant t-shirt at the craps table with that logo on it, but as far as, wearing it around town, I think it looks pretty cool. And we'll have a variety of other things available for you to purchase if you're interested. But don't forget to join, obviously, like and subscribe. If you'd like to become a member, please do that there. If you like this video, you'd like to send us a super thanks, anywhere from $2 to whatever you're comfortable with, we certainly appreciate that also. We're really having a lot of fun. We've got a lot of different ideas coming up here pretty soon. We won't be shooting dice just in our garage. We will be doing live play. We're still working through that. I've never shot video in a casino before playing, but I know that's the natural progression of a channel like this. And so we're just trying to figure out how to best to do it effectively, get away with it, so to speak. Not necessarily like we're doing anything wrong, of course, but you get my point. I don't think we hit the ATS on any of these, even though we rolled 48 times. But boy, that's a good one there. I'm not. Let me give you the stats on that. So out of the 60 rolls we rolled total, we had a 15 SRR, 16 7-out ratio. We were off axis 55% of the time, which is pretty much right on par with a random shooter. But again, we weren't really shooting for anything specific. We were just trying to roll, stay focused, hit good kill shots. And, our dominant number is always the 6. It just is. That's the way I do it. Because when I have the 6s on the inside to me, the way that I use the angles and such, I get the 6 more than I get anything. And I had a total of 21 6s and 13 1s. So it wasn't exactly even. And that's why you see a higher distribution in the 8, 9, and 10, and lower distribution in the 4, 5, and 6, which is very typical. So that's what, when you're analyzing your own rolls, you really need to identify, keep track of it, use CRAPS, use whatever you want to use, or just use a notepad and keep track of how much you're on and off axis. Identify which one you roll more of, a 6 or a 1, right? And that'll help you adjust your betting style and the numbers you're placing and betting, so that way you can bet a little bit more on the 1s or the 6s, whichever one. Because obviously, if you're getting more 6s, you're going to have more higher numbers. If you're getting more 1s, you're going to have more lower. And so that's how I do it. I don't ever change my set. I pretty much don't ever change the grip. But what I did do, I believe, in that video, I was changing my grip a little bit. Not how I grip them, but how I was rocking them back and forth in my hand to get them to land a little softer. And for those of you who said I need to get a bouncier table, well, I'll tell you, this is the bounciest surface I have ever played on. And I think the sound of the smack throws a lot of people off, just because there's no other ambient noise around and people chattering and slot machines and all that. And it really is quite bouncy. I don't have near the level of control on that surface as I do on a firmer surface, but it doesn't matter. I can still go on long, deep runs. And so if you want to say that dice control is no good or doesn't exist, no problem at all. And I don't even know why it would be even point of arguing anymore, because you're still going to keep playing and you're still going to go on long rolls. And if you're practiced, whether you have some skill versus having no skill, I just think you're going to go on much longer rolls. Now, what numbers you're going to be rolling is really what's going to be determining. Your skill is going to determine what numbers you roll based on how you set them and how you throw them and what angles you use, vice versa. That's why I'm a big proponent of using all the angles, the same angle every time, like I've covered endlessly. If you haven't seen that, again, please either watch the Master Your Dice Control Beginner Series of 7 Dials of Dice Control, or the micro adjustments for more consistency video. Those are my most two popular videos. I will put those up in the end cards. Again, this video goes on for about 24 minutes. Anybody who is still watching, I appreciate it. I'm going to let this one play out. And again, we just stopped simply because we were making too much noise and we didn't want to wake everybody up. So I hope everybody enjoyed this one. It cuts off right around the 24-minute mark, 24 and 11 seconds. I hope you enjoyed this. You got about a few minutes to go to continue watching, but trust me, everything about the roll was 100% accurate. There's no need for me to edit any of these. I mean, they're pretty fantastic as they are. And I show you all the bad ones too. You know, that's what we always started out at. We started out with a 2, a 2, a 7, and then a 48. And that's just typical, right? I mean, how many times did I see the dice in the first three? Let's see here. That is... So 11. It took me 11 times with the dice before I went on a good run. And that would have been the fourth shooter, which is again why I always say I want to see the dice 4 or 5 turns or around 20 times. By the 20th time, I've either figured out what to do differently or gone on a run already. And that's typically how it works for me. So I encourage everybody to, shoot sessions like this where you roll about 60 times or 4 shooters worth. 4 to 6 really to get yourself in a nice groove and see how long it takes you and then see how long a roll you can really hit. It's really not about hitting the ATS, to be honest. I never really played it very often simply because that wasn't really what I was after. I wanted to go on really long runs, not just hit every number. Yeah, it does pay pretty well. I'm not going to lie. And so no reason not to play it. I prefer to think about less and go on for longer. And when I'm worried about hitting a particular number, I seem to get a little off track. When I just let my mind, kind of go blank and not think about anything, I seem to really go on these long runs, and that's kind of how this one happened. That's why I stopped talking about 5 minutes into the roll because I didn't want to get distracted. So that'll be all the commentary on this one. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you on the next one.